folks are committed and dedicated to saving the lives of the people around them, no matter what that challenge is.
Like the rumbling of subway trains and the honking of yellow cabs, sirens, at least to New Yorkers, can practically be white noise. But those sirens represent the city's intricate network of emergency services, including the fire department of the city of New York.
You know, the sun comes up every day, and we don't know what that day is going to bring.
It's the largest city-run fire and emergency medical services department in the United States, operating in a city that has no shortage of challenges.
One of the concerns is responding in gridlock conditions. Also, we have a lot of subterranean environments, such as the subway and under river tubes. You never know what you're going to encounter, and we try to prepare them for just about anything that they can come across.
New York City's fire department boasts prestige and pedigree, as it fights more than just fire and faces challenges unique to its epitomic urban environment.
And sometimes we'll lower somebody from the roof to pick them up and bring them down, and that obviously gets more and more complicated as the buildings in Manhattan get taller and taller.
The department, which serves more than 8 million residents, is one shaped and reshaped by tragedy.
Even 20 years later, the emotions that come through are still pretty raw.
When you encounter people in this profession, it could be the worst day of their life.
We're always trying to train for both the events that rarely happen, as well as the everyday mundane events that are less catastrophic.
Fueled by a cocktail of preparation, coordination, and bravery, the FDNY makes it safer for New Yorkers to be New Yorkers.
Engine 33 landmine, good morning, Devil.
Their day starts with roll call.
Mike, you gonna drive? Matt, take the nozzle. Still a little cold out, a little windy, so let's be on our toes.
42 Great Jones Street in Manhattan is home to Engine 33 and Ladder 9.
First thing, we start going over the rig, getting ready for the events of the day, the emergencies. This is where the lieutenant sits. We have a lot of tools up here that we use also. We have a computer that we can get special information, and we have a telephone that we can reach the 911 dispatcher from. I'll take you around the rest of the engine. Here's our hose bed. We have different types and different sizes. This is a 3.5-inch supply line. This is something that we can use that connect the engine to a hydrant. This is 1 3/4 inch, and this is 1 3/4 inch attack line. This is something that we can stretch into an apartment building that might have tight quarters. This is a real historical firehouse. It was built in 1898. Actually, the commissioner used to be stationed here. Now it holds Engine Company 33 and Ladder Company 9.
Engine 33 itself can be traced back to the department's founding in 1865.
What's interesting about the fire department, in almost any city, it somehow dates back to when the city began. For hundreds of years, it remained relatively consistent in the way things were done. Real organized firefighting began around 1648, when the city came up with an ordinance for all households and businesses to have buckets, the bucket brigades you often hear about. The first firefighters were appointed in 1737, and they were called by law the firemen of the city of New York. 1798, the state legislature organized the fire department of the city of New York. So it technically dates back to 1798. They were all volunteers, and in 1865, it became the professional paid force that we know of today.
More than 17,000 people make up the ranks of the FDNY. About 10,900 firefighters across the city command a fleet of more than 400 fire trucks. The department also has more than 4,600 EMS personnel and around 2,000 civilians working in areas like administration, technology, and health services. Compared to other cities around the country, the FDNY has no competition. Chicago has around 4,900 members, and Los Angeles has just under 4,000, including civilians. Tokyo touts itself as the only city with a larger fire department, with around 18,000 members.
We are a large fire department. I consider us to be the best fire department.
John Hodgins is the FDNY's chief of department. overseeing all fire and EMS services.
My dad was a firefighter, and I would always visit the firehouses. I always thought it would be, a very cool job. In my mind, a New York City firefighter, you have to have the mindset that you're doing your job, and while you're doing it, your main mission is really to help people.
The FDNY operates 217 firehouses across 320 square miles of New York City. An additional 49 EMS stations play host to the department's fleet of ambulances. Generally, a firehouse has an engine company and a ladder company. Each responds to the gamut of emergencies New Yorkers might see. Medical events, gas and water leaks, fires, and explosions.
The engine company relies on the ladder company, and the ladder company relies on the engine company. And a lot of times it can be life or death.
When a call comes in to the firehouse, the members get dressed, get ready, get on the truck. The nature of the call comes over a computer system. So if it's a call for a fire, we know it's a call for a fire. If it's a call for a subway, we know that. There's potential for you knowing quite a bit, and there's also potential for you not knowing anything, because you could just get a street corner as the location, and then when you pull up, you'll have to see what's going on and adapt.
Dense building material and large structures characteristic of Manhattan, along with strong winds that sweep through the city grid, forge the obstacle course New York City firefighters navigate each day.
This department is unique in the fact that we have 5 boroughs that can almost be 5 different fire departments based on the residences, occupancies, commercial, the mega high-rise, subways in some areas, above ground in other areas. So based on where you're working, you may fight fires not completely different, but techniques that they've learned through the years from senior firefighters and officers are passed down. And that's why as you go through each borough, certain things can change based on how they know what works best for their buildings.
When you leave the fire academy, you never know what you're going to encounter in subways, high-rise buildings, all the different structures that we respond to. There are specific manuals that we study for each type of structure. For example, a private dwelling home, a brownstone building, a tenement building, a high-rise building, and everything else that you would encounter in New York City.
New York's most obvious challenge is its most visible one, its skyline. The city is home to over 1 million buildings, more than 6,000 of which are considered high-rises.
They have what's called a standpipe system throughout the building. It's a pipe that runs from the city main all the way up to the topmost floor, and a lot of them have are supplemented with a gravity tank full of water on the top. We connect hose from the engine to that system, and then the engine firefighters carry these roll-ups up to that floor where we need to extinguish, and then we connect those roll-ups to that standpipe outlet on the floor below.
The number of buildings that are more than 1,000 feet tall has really grown over the last 15 years, and it continues to challenge us more and more.
To prepare for the challenges the city presents, New York City's firefighters continually train in and out of the firehouse. Formal training takes place at The Rock on Randall's Island. It's complete with a life-sized model of a city street, a building for burns, and a decommissioned subway car used for mass casualty drills. Here, new recruits, or probies, are trained for whatever they might encounter in the streets of New York City.
We call it probie school. It's an 18-week process. It's a rigorous training program that starts early in the morning, requires you to do a full day, 10-hour day. When you get home, you have to study, you have to pass tests. So it's a long, hard 18 weeks that when you leave, you've learned a lot and you're prepared for what's going to happen any given day in the field.
Subways are a little bit challenging just because of how far underneath the ground they are, that it's a little bit more dangerous. Not to mention the great amount of electricity that is running through the subways at all time. So there are many hazards in the subway. Moving trains, electricity, and confined spaces.
With 472 stations and roughly 665 miles of track, the New York subway is the largest in the United States.
The mass transit system is rather large, and we do operate in that system on a daily basis in all 5 boroughs.
We have a lot of subterranean environments, such as the subway and under-river tubes, that require us to descend sometimes multiple floors down to reach the track bed or the area where the emergency is.
It's something that training helps prepare firefighters for.
Behind me is a subway car from MTA. They brought it in here a number of years ago. It's a great asset for the New York City Fire Department. We bring the units out here and they drill on a regular basis. We'll do larger scale drills. We'll put mannequins in this car, simulate mass casualty or some sort of fire in a train. And we'll have field units come out here and they'll search the car, package the victims, and remove them from the train. We call it a Hollywood smoke out here. It's a safe smoke to train in. Just be operating in zero visibility in here. Just try to simulate some sort of fire or emergency in the system where you're going to have zero visibility. And we'll just have our companies come in here with their SCBAs on, search the train, and look for victims that we have placed throughout the system.
To make matters worse, much of the subway is over 100 years old. Ever-deteriorating conditions make the job just that much more difficult. In fact, much of the city's infrastructure is aging.
Those buildings that are 100+ years old can be like big tinder boxes, and they can light real quickly.
Since a lot of the infrastructure is old, we get a tremendous amount of gas leaks within the city. This can pose a tremendous danger to both the public and the firefighters going in to check on the gas leak, shut down the gas leak. The benefit of having something like a laser methane detector is I can detect the presence of methane from a distance. So we no longer have to put a firefighter in danger holding a meter to be actually in the environment to detect the presence of methane. So by sweeping the laser over the window, this window contains natural gas in it. The natural gas within the window is absorbing the infrared light that's coming off of the meter, so less of that light is coming back to the meter. The meter calculates that difference and determines a concentration based upon that.
Over time, technology like this has made possible a fortified department, better equipped to handle the city's ever-evolving emergency landscape. Meanwhile, the FDNY has found strength as it's adapted to circumstance.
The city has been the target of terrorism going back to the Civil War, maybe even the Revolutionary War, from what we think. So it had to adapt to those new realities the way the rest of us have to adapt. But their response is much different because if there is an incident, they have to be able to handle that.
The department has been shaped by its history and has changed in response to it, including in the span of one morning in September 2001.
New York City firefighter, drop what you're doing, report to your company. A major disaster is occurring in New York City this morning.
"343 members of the department died responding that day.
The fire department wanted to move ahead with some type of memorial, both to the members that lost that day, as well as to commemorate the efforts that went in to try to save those buildings and those people. Part of the room, the central feature of the room, is this monument which shows the 343 members of the department that gave their lives that day. And the voids that you see represent the missing buildings.
We all have our unique, stories. They've touched us in different ways. Even 20 years later, the emotions that come through are still pretty raw. Hearing radio transmissions of that day, seeing the images.
These are 10 people that were assigned to Engine Company 33 and Ladder Company 9. that lost their lives on 9/11. The bravery that they displayed and what they did, and it motivated me to try and do something similar. And especially here, and I'm sure at many other firehouses, we do have people that still work here that worked with them, and they let us know about how good they were, about what they sacrificed. I hope that I can do as well as they did.
Over the following 2 decades, the department refashioned itself.
Since 9/11, the fire department has become what's known as an all-hazards agency. So they don't just respond to fires anymore, but it became more focused, more specialized training, more of those types of things.
After 9/11, we enhanced our communication capability tremendously. So we have the capability to communicate over longer distances. It's typically underground rail situations, the subway, or even under river tubes, and also high-rise buildings.
Since 9/11, there's been a tremendous surge in technology within the fire service.
When we pull up to the scene, we will determine what type of robotic technology is necessary. New York City Fire Department has been using drones from March 2017. We use them on a daily basis now and probably fly somewhere around 30 to 40 times at incidents every month. If we have an incident, just say we have a crane collapse and we need to get a good view of it from far away, we'll use the technology that gives us a zoom camera. But if we're operating a fire, then we start to use thermal technology and drones that have that capability. And when we fly, we want to make sure that we mitigate risk from every angle. So we basically use the rooftops and try to fly away from the crowd. Crowd control is very important for us.
Drones and other technological developments help FDNY members to continuously cultivate a robust toolkit.
Especially in New York City, we run into congestion. Sometimes we're operating on small blocks, tight little corners. This, I need like a 2-foot by 2-foot footprint. Meanwhile, with this one, I would need probably about 10 foot all around in every direction. But every time you put a drone in the air, there is inherent risk.
The appropriate drone depends on the situation's particular obstacles and objectives.
Let's say we had a building collapse. You could take one of these aircraft and you could actually fly over the actual collapse and winds up making a 3D or 2D map of the location of that collapse. And now they could allocate resources by looking at tangible, actual live information. Saying, hey, underneath the drone, we spot a potential victim, or we have fuel leaking in the rear of the building in this location. Every situation is different and unique. This is our M300. It has a thermal camera, and it has zoom capabilities up to 180x zoom. We transmit the video feeds from this to the incident commander in real time, and the more information we present to the incident commander, the better decisions he or she would be able to make in the field.
The department's commitment to technological advancement is important, but tech is not its strongest asset. A magnet for strong, selfless, and steadfast personnel, the FDNY employs more than 4,000 emergency medical services members in addition to its firefighters.
Folks that work here, our EMTs and paramedics, are responding to medical emergencies. So they can be dispatched to any scene, no matter where you are in New York City, and provide the level of care that is necessary to sustain somebody's life. EMS does about 1.5 million assignments a year, which is astounding compared to other EMS systems. In fact, FDNY oversees the entire operations for EMS, so we're responsible for the entire city. Whether it's an FDNY unit or it's a hospital unit, we supervise all of that. We do about somewhere in the neighborhood of over 4,000, to 4,500 assignments per day. So we partner with some of the hospitals who also run ambulances, and we're all very in the game to take care of the people in New York City.
The city's EMS service reacted to the COVID-19 pandemic as all other healthcare workers did. and in a high-intensity landscape.
New York was the epicenter of it. EMS and the fire department and all the first responders, without hesitation, stepped up to the front line.
Members of the department were not immune to infection. With much of the workforce sick and on medical leave, the FDNY adjusted its staffing models.
Every single person came across like, put me in, I'm on the front lines. And we saw this over and over again where folks were getting sick and then coming back after, being out, being ill, coming back and going back onto the front lines. Personal safety, although important, really becomes, not so important when lives of the folks around you are in danger. And we see this, with firefighters running into buildings, and we certainly saw this during the pandemic.
EMS personnel were able to rise to the occasion because their careers began here, at the department's training facility in Queens.
A saying that we have here in the fire department is everything starts with training. And it is the foundation, the building block, where everyone will take what they've learned here within the training academies and bring them out to the field.
So we have two different programs. We have an EMT program, which is about 3 months, and then we have the actual paramedic program, which is about 9 months. And what we try to do is try to have scenarios where both the EMTs and paramedics working together so they have a better team dynamics when they're actually on the field.
Those running the program will offer trainees a specific scenario and allow them to act accordingly.
We have the cameras here, so this way we can actually see what scenario is being played. We can actually control the camera angles from here. We try not to interrupt any scenarios as much as possible, so this way it can be as realistic as possible.
At the end of the simulation, the team reviews its performance. Everything is recorded, so the end stage critique involves a playback of tape.
We have to prepare because we have an obligation to protect our city, and each one of us carry that. And, through a repetitive nature and through making your hands understand what they need to do without your brain getting in the way. And this is something that we do on a regular basis.
As a department, the FDNY does not always know what it's preparing for. Hours and dollars are investments in training for circumstances unforeseen.
Yeah, 9/11 changed the whole world, right? And changing the FDNY was an underestimation of what happened. But certainly we learned a lot of lessons. It was a very tragic event that will forever live in our brains and in our hearts. What we did learn from that is the impossible is very possible. So we have to train for the impossible, and we do that.
For a New York City firefighter, each day begins the same way, but each passing hour brings a new challenge to face or problem to solve.
Growing up, I wanted to be a firefighter. When you grow up in and around New York, you go to New York City to be a firefighter. It's a big city. It's the center of the world.
The magnitude of New York's assets is matched only by the magnitude of its liabilities.
New York City is the target of repeated attacks and repeated attempts. And we don't have to go back all the way back to 9/11. In New York City, as great as it is, we know we have to deal with that persistent threat, and we continue to train and prepare and be able to respond to whatever's out there.
The firefighters are seen as lifesavers. It's not until you need them that I guess you get the full appreciation for them. But they don't care who you are. They don't care where you live. They don't care if you even have a place to live. They'll take care of you. And if you have an emergency, they'll be there for you. If you pull a fire alarm box in the city or you call 911, the fire department's going to respond, and they're going to be there. And they're going to help you to the best ability that they can. And very likely save your life.